Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama, Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna sing loudly. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances of the Shri Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 16, verse 9, and the chapter is entitled How Maharaj Parikshit Received the Age of Kali. And we are very happy to have His Grace Vishnugada Prabhu with us. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Vancha Kalpabhyascha Kripasindavevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. And it's all yours, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari.
Jashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana.
Jashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana.
Jamuna Tira Banachari
Yamuna Tira vanachari.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira vanachari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bodhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bodhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajak Acharya Ashtotara Sata Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय.
Jai.
श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरी गोवर्धन की जय.
Jai.
वृंदावन धाम की जय.
Jai.
नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय.
Jai.
गंगा माई की जय.
Jai.
जमुना माई की जय.
Jai.
तुलसी देवी की जय.
Jai.
भक्ति देवी की जय.
Jai.
श्रमवेता भक्त वृंद की जय.
Jai.
गौर प्रेमानंदे.
Hari Hari Bol.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol.
Shri Gauranga.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutare Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 16th chapter, 9th verse. Mandasya manda pragyasya vayo manda yushascha vai nidraya hriyate naktam divacha vyarta karmabhi. Mandasya manda pragyasya vayo mandya yushascha vai nidraya hriyate naktam divacha vyarta karmabhi. Mandasya manda pragyasya vayo manda yushascha vai Nidraya hriyate naktam divacha vyarta karmabhi.
Mandasya manda pragnasya vayo manda yusaschavai nitraya riyate naktam devacha vyarta karma bhi. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else like to try or actually accomplish it? Yes. No? Okay. Mandasya, of the lazy. Manda, paltry. Pragyasya, of intelligence. Vaya, age. Manda, short. Ayusha, of duration of life. Cha, and. Vai, exactly. Nidraya, by sleeping. Priyate, passes away. Naktam, night. Diva, daytime. Cha, also. Vyarta, for nothing. Karmabhi, by activities. Translation. Lazy human beings with paltry intelligence and a short duration of life pass the night sleeping and the day performing activities that are for naught. Purport. The less intelligent do not know the real value of the human form of life. The human form is a special gift of material nature in the course of her enforcing stringent laws of miseries upon the living being. It is a chance to achieve the highest boon of life, namely, to get out of the entanglement of repeated birth and death. The intelligent take care of this important gift by strenuously endeavoring to get out of the entanglement. But the less intelligent are lazy and unable to evaluate the gift of the human body to achieve liberation from the material bondage. They become more interested in so-called economic development and work very hard throughout life simply for the sense enjoyment of the temporary body. Sense enjoyment is also allowed to the lower animals by the law of nature. And thus a human being is also destined to a certain amount of sense enjoyment according to his past or present life. But one should definitely try to understand that sense enjoyment is not the ultimate goal of human life. Herein it is said that during the daytime, one works for nothing, because the aim is nothing but sense enjoyment. We can particularly observe how the human being is engaged for nothing in the great cities and industrial towns. There are so many things manufactured by human energy, but they are all meant for sense enjoyment and not for getting out of material bondage. And after working hard during the daytime, a tired man sleeps or engages in sex habits at night. That is the program of materialistic civilized life for the less intelligent. Therefore, they are designated herein as lazy, unfortunate, and short-lived. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupakata Maikam Dadati Shapandantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before speaking, I'd like to ask the permission and blessings from all the devotees, and particularly those who might be senior by age or advancement in Krishna consciousness. I wanted to take a look at this verse. Let's take a look at the translation up there a little bit too. Thank you. So this is the chapter remember what the chapter was named?
How Maharaj Parikshit received the age of Kali.
Yes. So up to this point, there's a discussion about Parikshit Maharaj going out. He had married his wife. Do you remember who his wife was?
Maharaj Parikshit?
Yeah.
No.
You don't remember? That was the beginning of the chapter. We're not too far along.
I forgot.
That's okay. And just to remind, he married the daughter of King Uttara.
Mm.
So during the time when the Pandavas were incognito, they stayed at the kingdom of Maharaj Virat, and he had at least one son and one daughter, maybe more. The son was Uttara and the daughter was Uttara. Uttara was Arjuna's dance student during their time. So, and the son was Uttara, and he had a daughter by the name of Airavati, and she's the one who married here. Parikshit Maharaj. And then he had 4 sons. And then this statement here, when Sutta Goswami explained that Maharaj Parikshit came upon, while he was out conquering the world, he came upon Kali, who was dressed as a king, even though he was a low person, and he was beating the legs of the cow and a bull. And he said, well, Parikshit Maharaj punished Kali. Do you remember this? So then the question came. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I was going to say yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So then the question came up. Well, why did Parikshit Maharaj just punish him? Remember this question? Yeah.
Because I think he saw him herding the cow and the bull, right? And yes.
Beating the legs of the cow and the bull, yeah.
Yes.
So then Shaunaka Rishi, who's there listening to Sutta Goswami, he says, well, why did he just punish him? Which is very interesting.
And why didn't he not kill him? I think is that was.
Well, he didn't. He just said just punish him, but then
Okay.
yes. So the implication is he didn't kill him. So it's just very interesting. So the life of a cow was so sacred that in the current civilization, if you killed a cow, nobody would think that you should be killed, right? But here in this civilization, they realize the killing of the cow is such a grave transgression to the laws of nature that anybody who does so, there's certainly a question that they should be killed. Nowadays, hundreds of thousands and millions of cows are being killed every day, cows and bulls, for the satisfaction of the tongue. And there will be repercussions for that violence, transgressions of the laws of nature. So that's reflected in the question by Shaunaka Rishi. Why did he just punish? of course, you might think, well, maybe why ask the question now? Maybe because the details of his punishment aren't described here yet, right? No, you didn't get the details, so maybe he should just wait. But isn't it? You could think. I was trying to understand this, but so Shaunaka Rishi is so faithful and knowing that Shuta Goswami is speaking in a very specific, very exact way, that he says, "Oh no," he understands. He's communicated punishment and not killing, and he immediately picks up on it, not waiting for. Well, perhaps he'll just talk about the killing later. No, he immediately questions. So then, this statement comes up. Lazy human beings with paltry intelligence and a short duration of life pass the night sleeping and the day performing activities that are for naught. Who is saying this verse? Who is saying this? I'm just trying to get the situation. We'll put the situation in context. Who's talking? I know who's talking, but I'm asking you. Any people would like to guess on that?
Goswami, all the sages, they're listening as this is being narrated. I'm
So,
thinking.
yeah. So you'd think my first guess would have been Sutta Goswami too, but
Yeah.
it's not. This is still after Shaunaka Rishi asked the question about why did he just punish. He continued speaking a little bit, and this is one of the statements that he made, which is very interesting. Very interesting. Lazy human beings with paltry. So this is Shaunaka Rishi continuing to speak. So he's preaching here, even though he's the listener and he's there with all these sages that are his associates, and he's accepting Sutta Goswami as the proper speaker, but he's making this statement, which is very interesting. So this point about having a short duration of life and being lazy is reiterated many times in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And why is that? Sometimes people say that they really want to go and just hear about Lord Krishna's transcendental activities with the gopis, etc., etc. But here we see in the practical situation of now we got to think about it. These sages, they're ready to hear Srimad Bhagavatam for 1,000 years. They've given up everything. They're just sitting there at Naimisharanya, and he's making this statement. They're certainly well aware of the situation. So to me, although it's not mentioned specifically, to me, they're reminding each other and us about the situation we all face in this material world, because it's really important to be reminded again and again, even though sometimes we don't like to hear about it, isn't it? This is like tough stuff. But Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosh Anudarshanam. The symptom of knowledge, real knowledge, is that we keep on. Anudarshanam means not just one time see, but we keep on understanding and thinking about and contemplating, meditating on the situation that we are facing in the material world, which has its concomitant factors of birth, death, disease, and old age. All these things that we have to face, everyone, each person, whether we're a rich person, famous person, or poor person, man, woman, beautiful, ugly, educated, uneducated, genius or not. Every one of us will be faced with these big hurdles and disturbances. And what are we going to do about it? Is there something we can do about it? So again and again, we're reminded of these things because we have the tendency to not want to think about it and forget about it. Sometimes you hear people talk about Srila Prabhupada's commentaries on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and sometimes people don't like it. And this is the prime reason, because we don't like to hear that we're going to die, and we don't like to be reminded of those things. And we have this, we want to think that people will live happily ever after, isn't it? That's how people want to think, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And look at this first, couple of sentences. The human form of life is a special gift of material nature in the course of her enforcing stringent laws of miseries on the living being. Oh, so we think of nature. Oh, what a beautiful sunset. What a beautiful country scene. But here, what is the purpose described in this purport? That material nature is her job is to inflict miseries on you and I. Think about it. Think about it. You know, something, because I work in the psychological field, sometimes, we get people who have various physical maladies along with their psychological difficulties. And sometimes I don't know the nature or the description, the symptoms of their physical maladies. So usually I have to look in a book called the Physician's Desk Reference. That's like gigantic book, thousands and thousands. What are all those? What's all there described? All the different kinds of miserable conditions, disturbances you can have.
And the side effects, Prabhu.
Huh?
And the side effects.
Yeah, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of miseries, and that's just the adi-atmic klesh, the miseries from the physical body. Then you have adi-bhautic klesh, the miseries from other living entities. You have your neighbor who plays his music too loud, or you have a robber, a terrorist, government that tries to tax you too much. You have insects like mosquitoes, bears, lions, snakes, so many different problems that come up. And then you have daivik klesh, too hot, too cold, droughts, all these different kinds of miseries. So if someone is if we become a little bit thoughtful, we think this land, this whole life is not a good situation for enjoying, with all these different kinds of miseries inflicted, or varieties of miseries inflicted upon us. But we should really think carefully that we have this human form of life, and let's take advantage to get out of all this situation of so many different kinds of miseries. So Srila Prabhupada describes you can break down humanity in many different ways, but sometimes he breaks it down into two categories: the Kripan and the Brahman. Have you heard this before? The Kripan and the Brahman. What are those two?
Kripan, Prabhu, I'm thinking it's something with mercy.
Not, I know it sounds like it, but no.
Yeah, but it's
Kripana,
not. Okay.
Kripan means a miser, and Brahmin means of someone who's broad-minded. So this is one categorization. There's the broad-minded people and the Kripana, the miserly type people. So we hopefully we can strive to be more like the Brahmins. But what is the behavior and mentality of the miserly people? I was thinking about this. What does a miser do? They have lots of wealth, but they don't spend it. They keep it, and they enjoy that they're having this wealth. They just kind of meditate on the wealth, but they don't do anything. with the money or the resources they have. So there's an Aesop's fable. You know Aesop?
You know, Prabhu, I've heard that many times, but I never looked into who that person is.
He was apparently a Greek, kind of moral philosopher. And some people say that he got his information, a lot of his stories from the Panchatantra of India, because there was quite a bit of interaction between the Middle East and India at that time. But anyway, Aesop has a story about a miser who had very much gold, lots of gold coins, and he kept his gold coins in a chest, and he buried the chest of gold coins in his backyard. So often what he would do is he would unearth the chest and then open it and look at the gold coins and enjoy them, and then put it back in its hole, cover it up again. And then as his days and days went on. So one day while he was doing that, one of his neighbors came by and they saw him doing admiring the gold coins. So after the man put away the gold coins, in the middle of the night, of course, the neighbor came and dug up the gold coins and stole it. So the next day, the man who owned the gold coins went there, and he was devastated because all the gold was gone. So the moral of the story, what do you think the moral of the story might be?
Don't be a miser.
And what specifically? Yes, but then more
Don't be
than
a
that.
hoarder. Like well, it's I'm trying to think. Sense enjoyment. He's looking and satisfying his senses and locking it up, and then looking and satisfying his senses.
Yes. And a little more specific than that, he had this wealth and he didn't use it. And because he didn't use it, it was taken away, or it was taken away. And how that might, thinking about it, how might that be analogous to what our experience is in the human form of life?
Oops, shoot, I went to the wrong
Get
thing.
the patient portal. Okay.
I don't. It's my husband's. Sorry, Prabhu. Let me go. I have to always check his reports. Prabhu,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, what I was gonna say is the analogy is we've been given this body and we are wasting it.
Yes. So we don't use it, and the neighbor who takes your gold, that in this case would be death coming along. Death is coming and taking your life away, and you've had all this opportunity to use your resources of human life to make spiritual advancement, but not doing that, neglecting it, your life is taken away. And then what happens in the next life? Most likely one becomes in a lower species. So this is an unfortunate thing if it happens to us or to anybody. So these kind of instructions given here in the form of straightforward instructions by Shaunaka Rishi, it's something like one devotee described it as like being the cooking of a puri. How is that? You might ask. Well, if you got the hot ghee there and you've rolled out your puri, you put it in, and then it's supposed to rise to the top, right? When you're cooking, if you know. But to make it puff up, it's a good idea to push it down a little bit. And that helps it facilitates its puffing up so it cooks nicely that way. So in a similar way, these instructions here they seem like they might be a little bit tough, lazy human being. We don't like to be called lazy or paltry intelligence, short duration of life, all these things. We don't, but let's get real here. That's the tendency of us in the material world. And sometimes when we need a little bit of a push to become more serious about our dedication to following, to using the energy of life to advance in Krishna consciousness. And, just like those sages at Naimisharanya, they were hearing this statement, lazy human beings and they were all very serious about Krishna consciousness, they were all there ready to spend a long time listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Similarly, here we have 9 individual devotees also who took their time to hear about Krishna consciousness. So, but still, it's good for us to be a little bit sober by hearing these things about how we need to advance and be serious about advancement in Krishna consciousness, like the puffing up of a puri. So there's this idea of being lazy. So on one hand, the Srila Prabhupada talks about a person being lazy, but then he also says that a lazy person works very hard for economic development. So it seems that these two things are not so compatible. Do you follow my question? On one hand, he says a lazy person works very hard. So-called they become they work very hard throughout life simply for sense enjoyment. But that same person is called lazy here in this verse. So how is that? Can you explain?
Because Prabhu, I'm thinking they are lazy in the sense that they are using it for economic development, but they're not using it in valuing the real human form of life. In that sense, they are lazy.
Yes, very good. So they're lazy in terms of their interest or energy given to self-realization. They may be very active in other aspects of their life, in getting money and becoming sexually involved in all kinds of things, but in the aspect of interested in self-realization, oh no, as soon as you hear somebody speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad, fall asleep, right? That's the idea. We don't want to hear about that. That's not important, anything like that. So Shaunaka Rishi is in a sense chastising such people as if we have chastising these tendencies in ourselves. And it's not just here. This is a theme that recurs in the Srimad Bhagavatam right in the beginning. Sutta Goswami, when he first began speaking, he said, Prayin alpayusakshabya kalavismin yuge jana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hupudutaha. People in this age of Kali, they have short lives. Alpa ayusha. Alpa ayusha. Kalavasmin in Kali Yuga. Manda, here the same word used, manda, means lazy, and especially for manda, sumanda matayo. Following false leaders, foolish leaders, blind leaders. Manda, sumanda mateo. Manda, unlucky. Hupudutaha. Always distracted, always disturbed. The same idea being spread from the beginning. And then after, when Parikshit Maharaj then finally meets Shukadev Goswami, after he's cursed later, at the beginning of the second canto, the same point is emphasized at the beginning of Shukadev Goswami's instructions to Parikshit Maharaj. He starts out because Parikshit Maharaj then asks him, what is my duty? And specifically, what is the duty of someone who's about to die? What they should think about? What should they remember? And what should they do? So Shukadev Goswami then says, as you might know, Variyan Ishate Prashna. This question is wonderful because it's meant for the welfare of the entire world. And then he says, in contrast, Nidriyahiyate Naktam Vyavayena Chavaraya. He says that most people, they simply spend their nights sleeping and having sex life. Diva Chartahyaya Rajam Kutumba Bharane Nava. And in the daytime, they're looking, where can they get money? And Kutumba Bharane, Prabhupada translate that as, he said as shopping. You like to shop? Okay. Kutumba Bharane. So get money and go shopping. That's the life of the materialistic person. So again and again, the same point is reiterated. And in the Isha Upanishad, there's a nice verse. It goes, Vidyam cha vidyam chayas tad vido bhayam saha. It's only a person who can understand the difference between knowledge and nescience, side by side, can make real progress in spiritual life and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Vidyam cha vidyam chayas. So here we see these sages hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, they're always conscious of this dichotomy between the material path and the spiritual path. And it's important for us always to keep that in mind. So not to be lazy in our spiritual life, and we might be a little bit lazy in our material life. That's okay. In fact, I searched the Veda base for lazy. Word lazy, just to see how Prabhupada comments on it. And sometimes Srila Prabhupada comments as lazy as in a good way. Did you know this? Have you ever heard this? So you have, he describes the four orders, the four varnas, as Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. He says, the Brahmin is lazy intelligent. You heard this before? The Brahmin is lazy intelligent. Yeah. And the Kshatriya is active intelligent. So the Brahmin doesn't necessarily run around and get things done, with sweat, but the Kshatriya is active intelligent. Kshatriya carries out those things. Yeah. So the lazy intelligent and active intelligent. Then he also talked about a Bengali story where a king told his minister he wanted to feed all lazy men in his kingdom. You know this one? So he said, well, here's what you do. You call all lazy men to be fed. And so the minister called all lazy men to be fed. And when they were there, he said, now they came to a feeding house. Now set the house on fire. So all the men ran out, except two. Two didn't run out. And what happened? One said, my body's feeling a little hot. And they said, well, maybe you can just turn around. They stayed in the house. And so the king said, those are lazy men. Feed them. Anyway, so sometimes lazy is considered, so he identified them as lazy. But for the Brahmin, lazy is okay, but lazy intelligent. So we're encouraged to be lazy for our material life and not ambitious for material gain, but very astute and endeavoring for spiritual progress. Then there's this other point about people having short lives. You know about this? So anyway, I wanted to research short lives a little bit because, in our Vedic literature, we say that people in the age of Kali specifically have short lives. And in the previous age, Dvapar Yuga, how long would people live? Up to what? You remember?
Was it 1,000?
Yeah, 1,000.
Yeah,
And
1,000 years.
And in Treta Yuga, how long people would live?
I forgot that.
10,000,
10,000, yeah. And then in Satya Yuga, how long people would live?
100,000 years.
100.
Yeah. So is there any evidence of this kind of thing going on? And, because usually people will take this as being, mythological, stories that people say and, like that. Well, if you look at the recent past, at least in America, you'll find that, during the time of the Civil War, people's longevity was about 40 years old, especially because a lot of people were being killed in that battle. But over time, up till today, people's average life duration has increased to be, 70s, a little more for women, a little less for men. Actually, an interesting point is in the last 10 years or so, the life expectancy has gone down. And that's not just from the COVID-19. It's also because of other conditions. The decline started before the COVID-19. But anyway, we see there's changes in life expectancy according to various factors in time. So if we look, there's something called the Sumerian list of kings. Have you ever heard of this? So in the Middle East, there were several empires. One was the Sumerians, one were the Assyrians, and one were the Babylonians. The Babylonians were a little bit later. The Sumerians were among the first, and then the Assyrians were a little bit after, about the same time, but a little after that. So the Sumerians, they kept a very detailed list of the names of kings that were ruling in various parts of their empire and the duration of their reign as kings. So in that list, you'll find the reigning of those kings went from like 28,000 years to 43,000 years. Isn't that interesting? And then they came up to be, there was apparently a flood at a certain point, and then after the flood, the reigns were decreased from 300 to about 1,500 years, and then even to the more then down more recent, there were reigns of kings that went from 330 to 100 years or so. So it's a very interesting thing. So our historians, archaeologists, etc., they postulate or theorize that really this thing of of 28,000 year reign must be they're must be using a different unit of measure than a year. That's what they think. Although if there's other information there that says if they use that unit of measure and made it smaller, like instead of a year being the traveling of the sun to a certain point in the zodiac, instead they used the year as the moon going from full moon to dark moon and back. Then some of the incidents that occurred in their history would be done when the kings were like babies. So it doesn't really make sense. Does that follow? You follow that one? If they translated the ages that they have. So, and that's not the only point. There's also something called the Shah Namet by a Persian historian in the 10th century that described previous reigns of kings from 300 to 1,500 years long. That's interesting. Then, of course, we know in the Bible, most of in the Old Testament, there are many descriptions of people like who were living for 900, 800 years. And we even know that Srila Prabhupada mentions about Bilva Mangala Thakur. You know Bilva Mangala Thakur? He was a Brahmin who lived in South India, but he became attached to a prostitute. And on the day of his father's Shraddh funeral ceremony, still he had to see her. even though it was raining hard, and he decided to make the trek anyway. The bridge was out. He swam across the river, and held onto a dead body on his way to help him get across. And then he had to climb a wall and grab the snake. And finally, he got her audience, and she said, "If you had so much interest and seriousness to understand Krishna as you are just to try to enjoy this material body, then your life would be worthwhile." And that something snapped in his mind. He was reminded of his previous spiritual activities, because in his previous life he had attained the level of bhava. And so he decided to leave immediately and make his way to Vrindavan, where he lived for, Prabhupada says he lived for over 700 years in Vrindavan. And he's famous for writing the Krishna Karnamrita, which Lord Chaitanya brought with him in his travels back from South India. So we see that there's evidence in several places that people can live longer periods of life, particularly in bygone ages, according to their involvement in more sattvic or lifestyles. But whether one lives for thousands of years or just a short time, on the contrast, Lord Chaitanya was only here for 48 years on the earth. But whatever one's life span is, better not live it like a tree who can live for thousands of years. But what's the value of the life of a tree? Whatever span of life you have, let's see how we can utilize it as much as possible in Krishna service, by chanting the holy names, engaging in Harinam Sankirtan, reading and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with devotees, offering your food to Krishna, taking the remnants of Krishna Prasadam, and trying to spread Krishna consciousness as well. That would be a good use of our paltry life, small duration of life that we have in this Kali Yuga. And if we do so, even to the short duration, if we do so, then there's very good chance that we'll be out of this cycle of birth and death and go back to Godhead, back to home. Hare Krishna. Haribol.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Such a wonderful class. And like you mentioned, Prabhu, like we have to be reminded about laziness every now and then, even though we don't like to hear it. So that was absolutely a reminder for me, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Would like to ask devotees have any questions, any clarification, any doubts, please, do raise your hand, or you can just jump right in. Prabhu, I have a question, and you were mentioning in one point that it's I'm trying to see how you put it, but better to be lazy, and not get so attached and be proactive, not lazy in Krishna consciousness. Better to be lazy in the material aspect, I think is what was said. But Prabhu, how can we balance between lazy in material life activities and laziness in spiritual activities? Because I come across situations where we get lazy, and then once we get the taste of material life, then it switches the roles and we don't know how to balance it, and that seemed to be a challenge. So how can we really be aware, because there's so much out there that's enticing us?
It's true. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And our tendency is to get distracted from all those things, from our spiritual life, to become more involved in those other things. So that's why we take vows for chanting the holy name at least 16 rounds every day. I suppose you have your deities at home in addition. Well, you have your deities at Nitai Gaura Chandra. So yeah, so devotee discipline takes a vow that we'll do these are the basic things that we're going to do every single day, or however it is. And those things keep us on the path strongly. Srila Prabhupada talked about how, if you follow the 4 regulative principles and you chant 16 rounds, you're on the boat going across the ocean of nescience. And the boat may rock. I don't know if you've ever been on an ocean liner when it's crossing the ocean. Yeah. So the boat may rock, but still, by doing those things, those vows, you remain going across the ocean, even though it may shake. So devotee said there, sometimes, what was that?
Yes, Prabhu.
Sometimes being lazy in professional life transfers to being
Yeah,
lazy in spiritual life
how
too.
to prevent it. That's his question also.
Well, like I said, that would be the same thing.
Mm.
Well, there's so many things that you face in life. Sometimes, you get knocked off your kilter because so many things, some illnesses happen, deaths happen, you might be fired from your job, so many different things. So to be vigilant in our spiritual practices means following those vows. And also, what's really helpful, as you probably know, is to maintain regular association with devotees, because in the material world, everybody's going to have you do. There's so many other things that people are going to say are important, but when you have regular association with devotees, it helps you to stay very fixed and enthusiastic about those spiritual activities that we really need to make progress in.
I hope that helps, sort of, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a nice question, because I've also come across situations where people get lazy profession, and then it trickles into the spiritual life, and then both goes.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, your material life, say, you might think, well, I'm doing my job as a IT professional, say. Of course, that your IT professional job will be sanctified if you use a significant portion of that, what you get for that work, for service of Krishna. So that's also becomes spiritualized. So that's part of your spiritual activity too. So that's proper. That's proper.
That
Let
was
me see. Hare Krishna, Parikit Prabhu. Haribol. Nice to see you.
he was
Hare
actually
Krishna,
giving
yeah.
the class at Philadelphia,
The
Prabhu.
Zoom.
Oh, okay. That's
We just
nice.
finished and I switched to this one.
Wow.
They called him last minute, so he had to help them, and then jumped on this one.
Okay.
Yes. Wait, there's another.
Oh, here, because after work I crash in bed, wake up directly to chant with Lokanath. Okay. So is that if you chant with Lokanath Maharaj, that's very nice. I mean, that doesn't sound lazy to me.
I think his point is the crashing in bed.
Yeah, well, however much sleep you need, 6 hours or a little more is okay. Just so not, laziness. Prabhupada gave the example of laziness as there'd be office workers in Calcutta. He'd say he'd see them, they have to go out and deliver something to another office, and they'd go, and then they would sleep in the in the field there in the central Calcutta. They'd spend several hours sleeping, and then they'd go back to their office, and the boss would say, "Well, what happened?" He'd say, "Well, what can I do? I waited. There was nobody. I couldn't deliver the package, and there was nobody there." So they're thinking, "Oh, we had a wonderful day because we were able to sleep and get paid at the same time." So that's called laziness. So,
But the Lord in the heart is the last word on all of these things. That's what it's really cheating. Hare Krishna.
Krishna knows that, yeah. And So after work, crashing in bed, sometimes it's good, if you go after work, sometimes it's good to take a shower because that gives you a kind of a refreshing, in Vedic system, there was, 2 showers a day, 2 baths a day is good. At least, Brahmins would do 3. That keeps a little bit fresh. And associating with devotees, yeah. Evening katha is also good reading. Even for 15 minutes is good.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Prabhu.
yeah.
Srinivas Prabhu, you have a question? Please go ahead.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Have very nice session. I have one question. So as you pointed out at the beginning of the class, the role of the Maya is to give miseries, right? So how does even the devotees, right? We also undergo miseries, sometimes, but how do we take up those miseries compared to the miseries that we undergo when you are in the material platform more?
Yasyaham anugrinami harishye tadhanam shanai. Lord Krishna told Yudhishthira Maharaj that he gives people miseries or difficulties just so they can come back to him. Just so it is very merciful. So devotees take their miseries as being given by Krishna, and they are either directly or through material nature. But Krishna takes personal care of his devotees and giving them difficulties so that they can make advancement, so they can remember him. What to speak of us, even great devotees like, Srila Prabhupada or the Pandavas, you can imagine they went through so many difficulties. They didn't, on the material side, they didn't live happily ever after. They had all kinds of difficulties in their lives, kicked out, living in the forest, etc. So, but they never took that situation as being separate from their possible advancement in Krishna consciousness. What did they do when they went to the forest as incognito or agatavas? I'm sorry. They took the opportunity to talk to sages. They were hearing from sages all the time. Vyasadeva would come, Markandeya Rishi would come, Lomasha Rishi would come, all this. And so they took the opportunity, even though it was difficult, as an impetus for further advancement in Krishna consciousness. So, the details for each misery, I can't say. A devotee also thinks that actually the miseries I'm experiencing is just a token for what I really deserve. And I'll keep on suffering them and continue to offer obeisances to Lord Krishna from the core of my heart. And Nectar Devotion says that this mentality of the devotee makes him eligible to go back to Godhead, that particular mentality.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That was a very good one. And when you start, you quoted a verse. What is that verse? Could you please repeat it? Sorry.
Oh, yes, Yaham Anugnami Harishye Tadhanam Shanai. That's a very fun verse. It's a great verse. It's so Parikshit Maharaj asked Lord Krishna, how is it that the devotees of Vishnu, who is the husband of the goddess of fortune, they're usually poor and they don't have anything. And the devotees of Lord Shiva, who lives in a crematorium, they're usually very opulent. And so Shukadeva Goswami says, you know something? Your grandfather, Yudhishthira Maharaj, asked the very same question to Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna said this. He said, actually the mercy or the people who get great opulence like those devotees of Shiva, they're not really getting mercy. The mercy is, I give my devotees mercy. How do I give them mercy? By giving them trouble, by taking things away. Hari. Step by step, I take things away from them. So anyway.
Thank you very much. That's really wonderful. Thank you, Prabhuji.
And Prabhu, I've heard that sometimes people are afraid to take to Krishna consciousness because
Yes.
they're afraid that Krishna
Yes.
will take everything
Yes.
away from
But
them.
things will be taken away from us anyway at the time of death. There's no question. We know that.
Exactly, Prabhu.
And they'll be taken away from us all the time. I mean, if you look at, you know, the histories of the Srimad Bhagavatam and Mahabharata, etc. No, we don't find people are the devotees of Krishna. They're often in difficulty. Prahlad Maharaj, you know, this wasn't a happy thing. His own father was giving him a hard time. So there's always challenges, whether you're a devotee or non-devotee. Everybody's challenges. So the difference is that the devotee can see things. There's light at the end of the tunnel. This is only a temporary physical situation. And if we stick to our Krishna conscious program, then very soon Krishna can bring us back to our eternal home.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. And
Krishna.
thank you for that nice question, Srinivas Prabhu. That was a very nice question. Thank you. Any other questions from devotees? Anything that's coming to your mind that you would like to ask, you would like to share? Had some really nice questions and discussion this morning. And if there isn't, we thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you so much, Vishnugada Prabhu. Such a wonderful class. Vanchakraptibhyascha. Kripasinduvevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Right.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Have a wonderful day.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Right, Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri